Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Association Pod. So excited to have you guys tuning in for another great episode. We got a lot to cover on week 15 in the power rankings. We're also going to take a look at auditing how teams perform in all 9 categories. Specifically, we're going to look at who's been performing best over the last 4 weeks and which teams are best prepared to make a playoff run or a consolation bracket run. We got a lot to cover, so everybody strap in and let's have a great episode. Before we kick off the power rankings breakdown and the category audits, there's obviously going to be a lot to cover on this year's trade deadline in the NBA. We already have some massive deals that have happened. Obviously, you have the Trae Young deal back a couple of weeks ago. We just had the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade to Utah, and we saw Cleveland swap for James Harden and send Darius Garland over to the Clippers. Later this week, we're going to have a second episode, a special trade edition of the Association Pod, where we're going to break down how all the NBA trades will affect fantasy basketball and specifically affect the association. So keep your eyes peeled for a special episode later this week. Now that we got that scheduling announcement out of the way, let's start off by breaking down the power rankings of week 15. Starting off with the team that came in the 12th spot, we have Cat. We see Jordan's squad taking another drop in the power rankings for the second straight week after they placed 9th in week 14. The team did have the third best turnover number in the association this week. However, 6 of the 9 stat categories for Cat were ranked 9th or lower, leading to them dropping into our bottom spot. The player nominated for most impressive player of the week from Cat is going to be Jalen Duren. Jordan's acquisition of Jalen Duren has had a huge impact on his team as he continues to be a player frequently nominated for most impressive player of the week. Duren continues to have very consistent production and put up a stat line in week 15 very similar to the previous in 14. Duren had 79 points and grabbed 44 rebounds, that number being the most of any player nominated in week 15. Duren also was able to have a double-digit total in assists as he dished out 10 dimes. Duren also was highly efficient from the field as he knocked down 66% of his field goal attempts. Jalen Duren has been a key component of the Detroit Pistons' run to the top of the Eastern Conference standings in the NBA, and he continues to be a very important component to Cat and his run for the rest of the season as well. In the 11th spot, we have Captain's Carnival next. Taylor's squad also takes a drop in the power rankings. This only a 1-spot drop after they were 10th last week. They were the top team in turnovers for the second straight week. However, the reason for the 1-spot drop can be contributed to them having 5 of the 9 stat categories being ranked 11th or 12th for week 15. The player that's going to receive the nomination for most impressive player of the week from Captain's Carnival is Moussa Diabate. Diabate had an incredible week for the Charlotte Hornets and put up some very impressive numbers in the center position. He had 52 points and grabbed 39 rebounds, the second most of any player nominated. He also had a nice assist number from the center spot, dishing out 11 dimes. Diabate put up the highest field goal percentage number of any player nominated this week, as he knocked down 73.5% of his attempts. Diabate has been a key member of the Charlotte Hornets and a big factor on their 7-game win streak that they've been on. He continues to show some good prowess on the court and is a player that Captain's Carnival is very happy to have on his squad, I'm sure. Next, we will find Benny's Bistro coming in the 10th spot. Benny's team is able to climb up out of the 12th spot where they were ranked for the last 2 weeks. They were able to make this jump thanks in part to improving in the free throw percentage category, as they were first in week 15 after they were last back in week 14. They also put up a good turnover number as they had the second best in that category. They were not able to make a higher jump, unfortunately, as 5 of their 9 stat categories finished 10th or lower. A key player helping Benny's Bistro jump out of the bottom spot was Tobias Harris. Harris has come back for the Detroit Pistons and had a nice impact filling in to the top-ranked team in the East. He scored 61 points, grabbed 23 rebounds, had 10 assists, and also grabbed 6 steals this week, the third most of any player nominated. Tobias Harris is a key member of the Pistons in terms of not only their production on the court, but their great chemistry and rapport amongst the team. Our resident Detroit Pistons fan will be happy to see one of his players performing well, not only for his favorite NBA team, but also for his team in the association. In the 9th spot of the power rankings, we have the underdogs next. Ryan S. is able to move up 2 spots after being ranked 11th in week 14. There was no categories for the underdogs where they finished very low, but there wasn't a high ceiling for their performance over the week. Their best category was a 4th place finish in field goal percentage, and their lowest was being 10th in free throw percentage. Part of the reason that kept them from rising anymore is having 3 other categories that were ranked 9th or tied for 9th. For the underdogs, the player that performed best on their squad and gets the nomination this week is Jaden McDaniels. McDaniels continues to play well and put up good contributing numbers in multiple stats categories. He scored 63 points, including 12 three-pointers made. He also grabbed 13 rebounds, at 11 assists, and continues to be very efficient from the field, knocking down just under 55% of his field goal attempts. McDaniels has had a great impact all season for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he continues to have a good impact for the underdogs and Ryan S., who just recently acquired him in a trade a couple of weeks ago. For the 2nd straight week, we were going to have a big lump with Knobs holding the 8th spot of the power rankings. Chris did not have his best field goal percentage week, as he did finish 12th in that category. However, all the rest of his categories finished very consistently in the middle of the pack. All but one other category finished between the 4th spot and the 9th spot in their individual rank, with the steals category being the one that was 4th best across the league. The player that helped contribute to that good performance in the steals category was none other than Dyson Daniels. The Great Barrier Thief continues to have a great impact on the defensive end, as he grabbed 11 steals in week 15. The 11 steals are the most of any player nominated for the awards this week. Daniels also had a great impact facilitating the offense for the Atlanta Hawks. He dished out 32 assists and was able to still score a respectable 49 points. Daniels has definitely stepped up this season with the absence and the trade of Trae Young, and continues to show why he's a valuable asset for the Atlanta Hawks to build around for the rest of the season and years to come. Next up, we have our biggest faller of the power rankings this week, that being Harry the Hawk. Kenny's team unfortunately drops out of the 2nd spot that they held in week 14 due to a couple of poor performances in blocks and free throw percentage, where they finished 10th and 11th respectively. They had the 3rd best performance in the field goals category this week. However, in total, 7 of the 9 categories finished 7th or worse. A big reason keeping them out of falling too far down the power rankings was the fact that they had a good performance in the win-loss category, as they finished the week with an 8-1-0 record. As we mentioned, that field goal number was 3rd best in the league, and a key component of that performance was Jared Allen. Allen was able to knock down 69.4% of his field goal attempts this week, which helped him score 78 points. Jared Allen also had a good performance on the glass, as he grabbed 37 rebounds for the week. Despite the tumultuous season for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jared Allen had a nice performance this week, and hopefully can be steady the rest of the season, both for the Cavs and for Harry the Hawk. In the 6th spot, we have another team repeating as their same rank from week 14, that being the Heatles, holding this spot again. John Frank stays right in the middle of the power rankings, thanks in part to a great performance in free throw percentage, being the 2nd best in that number, but unfortunately was not able to make more of a jump in the power rankings, as they were 11th in steals. Their finish in the middle of the power rankings is very emblematic of how they performed in the stat categories as a whole, as the rest of their categories besides free throw percentage and steals were no worse than 9th. The player being nominated from the Heatles is one of the most surprising players of the season so far, that being Dylan Brooks from the Phoenix Suns. The Suns have shocked a lot of people with how well they've played this season, minus the trade of Kevin Durant in the offseason. Dylan Brooks has been a key component for that surprising run that the Phoenix Suns are on, and nothing shows how good he's been more than his performance in Week 15. He scored 115 points, including being able to knock down 12 three-pointers. He also grabbed 18 rebounds and had double digits in assists as well, dishing out 11 of them. Brooks has been known in the NBA for his defensive prowess and his physicality, but he is showcasing that he is much more than that with his performance on the offensive end over the last week. John Frank is hoping that Dylan Brooks can continue this performance and help the Heatles make a nice run the rest of the season. Our next team in the power rankings is making a 2-spot jump and that team is Malik's Monastery. Thomas is able to slide up the power rankings a little bit from last week, thanks in part to some good performances in both percentage categories. Malik's Monastery had the best field goal percentage of the week and was also third best in free throw percentage. They also had the third best total in the block category as well. They were held back from making a bigger jump in the power rankings due to rebounds and steals being ranked 10th for the week. A key contributor to that great finish in the block category was Chet Holmgren. Holmgren was able to swat away 11 shots in week 15, the most of any player nominated for the awards this week. He also had nice totals in points and rebounds, as he scored 49 points and grabbed 23 boards. Things have been a little rockier for the Oklahoma City Thunder compared to how they started the season, but Holmgren continues to impress and shows why he's a good two-way impact player and deserving of the All-Star nominee that he received for the NBA this season. Malik's Monastery and Thomas are hoping that Holmgren can stay healthy the rest of the season and continue to have great impacts on both ends of the floor. Next up, we find the Jimmy Chitwoods in the 4th spot. My team is able to slide up the power rankings one spot, thanks in part to having only one stat category, being 5th or worse during week 15. The team could have made an even higher jump in the power rankings if it wasn't for the fact that they had a 3-6-0 record against one of our top 3 teams that'll come here in a bit. For the Chitwoods, the player that performed most admirably in week 15 was Desmond Bane. Bane was able to score 99 points, including 14 three-pointers made, the third most of any player nominated. Bane also had double digits in rebounds and assists, having 10 and 11 in those categories respectively. The Magic have had an up and down season so far and have dealt with some poor injury luck to some of their stars. But Desmond Bane has been able to play fairly consistent over the last couple weeks and is hoping that his play can steady the ship for the Magic. And the Jimmy Chitwoods is hoping he can continue his strong play for them as well. Another team sliding up one spot in the power rankings is aspirations of a title. For Tim, it was another great performance in the stat categories this week, as they were able to be first in blocks, tied for second in steals, and third best in assists. They also had a very high floor in the other stat categories, as no category finished worse than 9th over the week. A player for Tim that filled almost all the stat categories very well was Cade Cunningham. Our third Detroit Piston of the nominees this week definitely showed why he is the engine for everything that Detroit does well. He scored 95 points this week, also grabbed 14 rebounds, and dished out 41 assists, the most of any player nominated for the awards this week. Cunningham also had one of his best weeks on the defensive end of the floor, as he grabbed 7 steals and rejected 5 shots. The 12 stocks were tied second most of any player nominated for awards this week, showing that Cunningham is more than just an offensive engine, but also a great defensive player. Cunningham's two-way efforts showed why he was deserving of a nomination and why aspirations of a title is so glad to have him leading the charge for his team for the rest of the season. In the second spot of the Week 15 power rankings, also sliding one spot up, is going to be the Infirmary. Ryan W. has a lot of good things to look at based on his performance in Week 15, as they were ranked number 1 in 4 categories. The points, rebounds, assists, and steals categories were top compared to the rest of the league. They were also second in three-pointers made and second in blocks. They unfortunately were 11th in field goal percentage, and a better performance in that category could have launched them back up into the first spot. A player that Ryan W. is very glad to have acquired for his run in the playoffs and the rest of the season is Brandon Miller. Miller is showing why he was worth acquiring this season now that he is back healthy. He scored 105 points, including 16 threes made, the second most of any player nominated. He also grabbed 23 rebounds and was 1 assist shy of double digits in that total. Miller was also highly efficient from the field and knocked down 51.6% of his attempts this week. As mentioned previously, the Hornets are on a 7-game winning streak, and a player that's been a key part of that run is getting Brandon Miller back healthy and into the mix, something that the Infirmary was betting on when he traded for him a couple of weeks ago. The team taking reins of the top spot once again is Wiggins of Nas. For the 4th time in the last 5 weeks, Nate's team holds the top spot of the power rankings. The team was very consistently at the top of many different stat categories, including leading the league in three-pointers made, having the second best field goal percentage, also having the second most rebounds, the second most assists, and third most in points. They also were able to stave off an impressive week from the infirmary, thanks in part to having an 8-1-0 record in their matchup back in the week. A player that's very symbolic of their strong performance in multiple categories is Luka Doncic. Luka has taken on more ownership of the Lakers offense with the absence of Austin Reeves, and he showed why he is one of the best players in all of the NBA. He scored 142 points and knocked down 22 three-pointers. Both of those numbers are the most of any player nominated this week. He also had incredible performances on the glass and dishing out assists, as he had 38 rebounds and 39 dimes. Luka shows why he is one of the best players in fantasy basketball with the way he's able to stuff so many different categories. Now that we've concluded with the power rankings breakdown, it's time to hand out the most impressive player of the week awards. Starting off with the bronze medal, that is going to go to Brandon Miller from the infirmary. The great performances on the scoring end and his solid impact in other stat categories is why Brandon Miller is deserving of this bronze medal this week. The silver medal for week 15 is going to go to Cade Cunningham. Cunningham receives the second place finish, most importantly to his high number of assists and his great impact on the defensive floor. And the gold medal and winner of most impressive player of the week is none other than Luka Doncic. As we just recently stated, Luka filled the stat sheets very well, having a top 3 finish in points, three-pointers, rebounds, and assists. Now that we've broken down the Week 15 power rankings and handed out our most impressive player of the week awards, it's time to take a look at the category audits for every team and see who's performing best and who has some categories they can look to improve before our trade deadline in a couple weeks. As we take a look at these category audits, a couple of notes to tell you about this segment and how I'm evaluating and breaking down the category ranks. I've gone through the entire season and compiled the average category finishes for all the teams and the league average over the entirety of the season, and broken it down by which teams have done best over the last 4 weeks. As I explain the average finishes in the categories, if a team has a positive number in a category, that means that they have finished above average to the league average. If a team has a positive differential in a category, that means that they are finishing above the league average in that stat. If a team has a negative number for their differential, that means that they are finished below average. We're going to see how each teams are doing by evaluating how many stat categories are below average and making some highlights on where they perform the best and where the teams could find some room for improvement. We'll also highlight if there's any key notes based on how teams have done over the last month compared to their season-long average. We're going to go through the teams in random order, starting off with my team, the Jimmy Chitwoods. Over the last 4 weeks of the association season, the Chitwoods are performing very well in many categories. They have only 2 of the 9 categories that are finishing below the league average. Their best finishes are in points, rebounds, and assists. The Chitwoods could use some improvements, however, in the turnovers and both the field goal and free throw percentage categories. The team has improved very much in the last 4 weeks, specifically in the steals category. For the Chitwoods, they've improved greatly in the steals category, where they're performing 10 better than the league average over the last 4 weeks. That number is also 10 better than where they've done for the season as a whole as well. They have dropped a lot in the turnover category, though, as they were 7.8 negative for the season as a whole, and now they currently sit about 18 points negative than the league average. Our next team that we'll audit is a big lump with Knobs. Chris has not had the greatest performances compared to league average so far this season. As for the totality of the league and the last 4 weeks, they are finishing below average in 8 out of the 9 categories. The Knobs are best in turnovers, free throw percentage, and field goal percentage, and they struggle a little bit in points, assists, rebounds, and also struggle in three-pointers as well. The turnovers are 3rd best in the league compared to average over the last 4 weeks. However, the points are also 2nd worst to league average over the last 4. Their performance in assist has also taken a sharp decline by dropping 15 compared to league average over the last 4 weeks to the season as a whole. Our next team to audit is Malik's Monastery. Thomas has performed very well for the season as a whole, but there's been a few slips in his performance over the last 4 weeks. During the last month, 4 of the 9 categories rank below average, a drop from being 2 out of 9 for the season as a whole. The best categories that Malik Monastery performs in are points, blocks, and turnovers. The team could use some improvement in steals, rebounds, and assists compared to how they've been over the last month. Something, though, to highlight based on how they've performed over the last month is obviously the injury to Nikola Jokic. The team has been able to hold steady ground as Jokic has healed from his hyperextended knee. Now that the former MVP is back in the fold, it shouldn't be surprised to see Malik Monastery perform better, specifically in those rebounds and assist categories. Both of those categories over the last month have performed just about 10 worse than their season average as a whole. I fully expect them to return to their previous numbers and perform much better in those two categories. Next up, we take a look at the underdog's performance over the last 4 weeks. Ryan S. has shown some good improvement in the stat categories, but they still do have a majority of them finishing below average. 6 out of the 9 categories are below the league average, but that is an improvement compared to the season as a whole, where they have been below in 7 of the 9 categories. Their best categories over the last month are assist, turnovers, and field goal percentage. All 3 of those categories have a positive differential to the league average. The categories that could use some improvement are the points, rebounds, and three-pointers made category. The statistical category that Ryan S. has improved on the most over the last month is the assist category. For the season as a whole, they finished about negative 11 below league average, but over the last month, that number is now 6 points above average. Our next team to audit is Benny's Bistro. As we take a look at the Bistro, they are the team that has struggled more over the last month compared to their season as a whole. Over the last 4 weeks, 8 out of the 9 stat categories ranked below league average, compared to that number being 6 out of 9 for the season as a whole. The best categories for the Bistro over the last month have been turnovers, field goals, and free throw percentage. The turnovers number for the last month from Benny's team is a league best over the last month compared to average. They turned the ball over just under 32 times less than the rest of the teams in the association. The team could use some improvements in the points, assists, and rebounds category. They also could use some improvements in the three-point category. Over the season, they were a -4 in three-pointers made, but over the last month, that number has decreased to now being just over -15.5. As we take a look at our next team, Harry the Hawk, they are one of our teams that has also made an improvement over the last month compared to their season averages. Over the last month, they are only below average in 3 of the 9 stat categories, an improvement from the season where they were 5 out of 9 below average. Over the last month, Harry the Hawk has performed best in points, assists, and rebounds compared to the rest of their categories. The ones that they have struggled in the most has been blocks, field goal percentage, and turnovers specifically, where over the last month, they have the highest negative turnover number to league average, giving the ball away about 24 times more than the rest of the league. A big reason for their improvement over the last month is by being 41 points better in total across assists, rebounds, and steals. Our next team to review is going to be Cat. Over the last month, compared to the season-long averages, Jordan's team is performing very similarly across the board. For both metrics, they are below average in 6 of the 9 categories over both the last month and the season. The team performs best in turnovers, field goal percentage, and assists, but could use some improvements in the points, the three-pointers, and the rebounds category. The one category they've struggled in the most has been the points category. They are about 50 points lower compared to league average over the last 4 weeks, compared to their season-long performance against the rest of the league. Next up, we take a look at aspirations of a title. Tim has been able to actually improve compared to how he performs to the league average over the last 4 weeks. For the season as a whole, they were below average in 3 of the 9 stat categories, but over the last month, it's dropped to only 2 categories being below average. Aspirations performs best in points, rebounds, and assists. However, they struggle in turnovers, free throw percentage, and field goal percentage. Something to note as I went through the team evaluations and got to this point evaluating aspirations is that many of the teams at the top of the standings struggle in these 3 categories. The turnovers, free throw percentage, and field goal percentages have not been an indicator of who's at the top of the win-loss standings. During this review, the stat categories for aspirations of a title have been very consistent over the last 4 weeks to what they've performed as to how they've done over the season as a whole. Next up, we take a look at another team that would be in the playoffs if the season ended today, that team being the Heatles. Despite being in the playoff picture right now, John Frank's team has struggled compared to league average over the last month. They sit below average in 5 of the 9 stat categories over the last 4 weeks. This performance to the league average is a drop compared to the season as a whole, where they were only 3 below average in the stat categories. The Heatles perform best in the points category, the 3-pointers, and turnovers. Of the 6 teams that would be in the playoffs if the season ended today, the Heatles have the best performance to the league average in turnovers of any of the 6 teams in the top half of the standings. If the season was to end today and the playoffs were to begin, the Heatles would have the best turnover number to league average of any of the playoff teams. The 3 categories that the Heatles could improve in the most is their rebounds, their steals, and their blocks. John Frank has done a great job addressing the assist category that he is focused on for most of the season with his trade deals. For the season as a whole, he was about 15.5 below league average, but over the last 4 weeks, that number has increased dramatically as he now only sits just 2 assists per week less than the rest of the league. Our next team to audit is the Infirmary. Brian W. has been able to improve in a couple of categories over the last 4 weeks. Over the last month, they are performing below average in only 2 of the 9 categories. The best categories that the Infirmary perform in are points, rebounds, and assists. Something else to note based on how the review has gone for the team so far, the majority of the playoff teams perform well in these 3 categories. The categories that the Infirmary struggle in the most are the turnovers, the field goal percentage, and free throws. Over the last month, something to note about Ryan W. and the Infirmary, when you add up their performance against the league average in the 9 stat categories, they come away with the highest positive differential to the rest of the league. Finally, we take a look at Wiggins of Nas. Nate's team stands apart as the only team that performs below average in only 1 of the 9 stat categories. They perform best, like many of the other playoff teams, in points, assists, and rebounds, and struggle the most compared to the rest of the league in turnovers, field goal percentage, and free throw percentage. Over the last month, Wiggins of Nas has performed 10-plus differentials or better in 3-pointers, points, assists, and rebounds compared to their previous season average. Nate's team is definitely finding some strong momentum as the season begins to wind down. As we conclude our review of the category audits, as mentioned, it's interesting to see how the league and the NBA as a whole has shifted to dominant players having high impacts in so many categories. With the increase in the number of triple-doubles that players produce in the NBA, it's no surprise to see those players be on the top rosters in the rankings. It's also understandable to see those top teams then struggle in the turnover category and have the most compared to the other teams across the association. With that, it's time to conclude our episode of the Association Pod. I hope everyone enjoyed the category audit and the power rankings breakdowns of week 15. Just again to highlight a couple of scheduling notes, there will be a trade analysis episode, a special edition coming out over the weekend, where we'll take a look at all the NBA trades after the deadline and highlight how those trades will impact the players in the deals and how those players will affect our teams in the association. I also want to just remind everyone again of our trade deadline in the association coming up very soon. We currently sit 15 days away from the association trade deadline. Make sure to start negotiating if you haven't already for your last minute deals to improve your roster or acquire more assets for the next draft. One last announcement regarding the association, specifically about the Week 17 schedule. Week 17 will be extended for 2 weeks from Monday, February the 9th through Sunday, February 22nd. This extension of Week 17 is due to the fact of the NBA All-Star Game and the NBA All-Star activities. During that time, there will be no extension of roster additions, so teams will still be limited to the 6 moves over those 2 weeks. As always, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of the Association Pod, I'm so thankful for y'all's support and patience as I get these episodes out to you guys, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon. Thanks again, God bless, and have a great week.